But we have a hard stop at 11:30. Several of my colleagues and I are attending a groundbreaking ceremony for a very important new project in Poolesville. And we are going to change up the order a little bit this morning. We are going to start with item number 2, the Guaranteed Income NDA. Ms. McGuire, I will turn it over to you to walk us through this packet.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Thanks to everyone for joining this morning. So we will begin, as Mr. Albano said, with item 2, which is the executive's recommended budget for the Guaranteed Income Pilot Non-Departmental Account. And we have a number of folks here who have been working on this project. This is a really exciting, new, innovative project that the council initiated actually through a supplemental appropriation in FY22. Not all that long ago. And again, the team both that you're seeing here before you, but also other stakeholders have been working to work out all of the implementation details around this important program. I did include a lot of the granular detail in the packet around the participant enrollment because it just was so detailed. I thought it was really important to go ahead and elevate all of that. It just really shows, again, the attention to the process of being sure that this is reaching all of our community in a very equitable way to support our community. From an appropriation standpoint, the executive's recommendation continues the funding for the pilot program and for the direct service payments. So again, as I mentioned, the council approved an FY22 appropriation of $1.99 million. That was intended to support the possibility of 7 months of direct payments, as well as contract monitoring and execution, and some other startup and administrative costs. Again, the team has been working to refine those program details and implementation details, and so the direct payment phase of the project has not yet been initiated. However, those payments will roll forward. And so the 24-month clock will begin whenever it begins, and it will extend for 24 months, and the funding will be here to support it throughout that duration. So what you see here is, again, a 22 appropriation sufficient for 7 months of payments and administration, a 23 recommendation from the executive sufficient for 12 months of payments and administration, and then the remainder, which would be 5 months and administration, would be put forward in 24. Again, with no concern for shortening that 24-month period, it will just extend and move forward. So I will stop there. Council staff's recommendation is to support. Again, there's been a great deal of work to get this going, and we're excited to see that happen. And so I'll stop there, and the team can discuss the program implementation to the extent the committee would like an update.
That would be great. I'll just make a couple of opening comments. So both our office as well as the Office of Councilmember Jawando have been very intimately involved in all of the planning. And I want to give a very special shout out to Pam and to Beth, who have been there every step of the way. And this is a passion project for the entire council. And I've been very proud to work specifically with Councilmember Jawando on coordinating a lot of the pieces here. And I really want to thank my colleagues who bought into this vision before we could even finish the sentence and understood and underscored the importance of this. And this does represent a national model. This is the shift in how we deliver services to our community, empowering our community, putting trust in our community, which is frankly a much more straightforward and in many ways a dignified way of providing the support that these families we know need to get back on their feet, and I think is a wise investment, especially on top of everything else that we have going on. And it's also important to acknowledge that this is a public-private partnership, that philanthropy is meeting us a part of the way, and that this program will be highly evaluated, and so we can all have a high degree of confidence in its efficacy. And I just couldn't be more thrilled with where we've landed, and I do look forward to hearing a little bit more about implementation. But before I do that, Councilmember Rice wanted to chime in.
Just very quickly, and I want to thank you, Mr. President, and Councilmember Jawando for their leadership on this issue. I also wanted to acknowledge that there's a lot at stake here. Senator Martin Heinrich and Senator Susan Collins put forth a bill back in March, which was called the Two-Generation Economic Empowerment Act, that specifically is designed to support programs like this. So the pilot that we're doing is certainly going to be something that we highlight. We talked about it actually in great detail at the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference this past February. And so I just wanted to flag that for everyone because the federal government is watching. And it's things like this that are certainly going to hopefully be examples for what we can do across the nation. But I just wanted to highlight again the great work of our council president and Councilmember Jawando for really spearheading this effort that could be something that helps other communities across this country to be able to start to battle generational poverty through this model. So just appreciate everyone's great work. Thank you.
Very well said. Ms. Harris, you want to talk a little bit about implementation, or whoever is on?
Good morning. I just wanted to say I'm going to turn it over to Rashawn Nimhard to talk about this a little bit, but I just want to say that this pilot is near and dear to everybody's heart in the county. I think going back several years ago when we first started having these conversations to now, so it is, and it's a pilot for a good reason. We need to be able to demonstrate reliably that this works and what those outcomes are, that we're getting the outcomes we want for the families that are going to be involved in this. And we're being watched state and local and federal levels for what we do, as is often the case. So the data is going to be very important. And my hope is that we are successful in getting the outcomes we need, and that the state will look at that and say there are other ways we can help to put more resources and clear the path for GBI in the future. So looking forward to the conversation this morning and the implementation of the project. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amanda and Rashawn.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Councilman. At this point, we are in the full throes of planning and implementation. So we have selected our participants a targeted outreach that we'll be doing. We have done that from a collaborative lens of equity and equality, and we will have that public as soon as in a couple of weeks for the public to understand how we chose the participants that we did and why we chose the participants that we did. We're looking to start with, of course, 100 participants from the homeless Continuum, and then 200 participants with other equity criteria from Montgomery County. We're hoping to start our implementation full-on first cohort on the 1st of June, at least the first week of June. We intend to do a kind of a soft and rolling implementation of this project while we give our community the opportunity to enroll and understand their hardship while they enroll, understand the effects of the program on their enrollment, and we're trying to not be very invasive, but at least have a softer touch on how they enroll into the program. So we're looking to start possibly payments in the middle of June, so FY22, with our first cohort, and we're hoping to after that continue our touch with the community and with the participants from a social perspective and an evaluation perspective. We're also putting the evaluation pieces together with the hope of using a university and a private entity. The public-private partnership around this implementation has been completely integral with having the community voice at the table. So a lot of the documentation, a lot of the language has been a part of the community going forward. So the things you'll see on the website in about a couple of weeks has been from the community perspective. We have that, very integral part of the implementation process. You can let me know if you need any other questions answered. If I missed anything. Thank you.
No, I think you nailed it, and our office has been intimately involved, and we've been keeping our corresponding offices abreast of the update and progress. And so, don't have a lot of questions, just want to express our deepest appreciation and thanks. We look forward to the implementation, and we want to provide a reasonable runway here because we know that it's the first time we're doing this. And while we'll be able to take advantage of some of the systems that we've been building throughout the pandemic, which I think puts us in a better position to be able to implement this, there are a lot of partners here, and so I know how that can be both an opportunity and sometimes a little bit of a challenge. But we're all on the same team, rowing in the same direction. So thank you all so much. So I think without objection, then we agree with the staff recommendation. Great, thank you. So that moves us back to the next item on the agenda. Ms. McGuire, I'll have you tee this one up as well. And Council Vice President Glass and I are going to be tag teaming this one. You will be chairing a component of this next section.
Thank you. So yes, we will dive back into the Department of Health and Human Services, for today's work session, we're scheduled to go through the Services to End and Prevent Homelessness service area, which, as you mentioned, Mr. Glass will chair, and then we'll move into Behavioral Health and Crisis Services and Children, Youth, and Family Services, but those items that are not reviewed by the Joint Committee. Of course, we did have a Joint Committee meeting last week. We have another one scheduled, so this will be those items that are not joint. And so with that, I think we can dive pretty quickly into Services to End and Prevent Homelessness. Again, this, as with other service areas in the department, is an area that's receiving an increase in the 23 recommended budget. And it's also really, again, another pretty clear example of this somewhat transitional space that we're in as we come through that pandemic experience. Obviously, it's continuing in different ways, and looking ahead to how are we carrying these services forward? What is that future bridge? I think, again, that's a theme we're seeing, and I think it's very illuminated here in this service area. So I think, again, there's a lot of increases here that are in county dollars that are important to keeping those services moving forward. I think there's also an acknowledgement that there needs to be additional and continuing monitoring and evaluation to understand how that level of service can be carried forward, again, as we enter this sort of whatever new space we're going into. So I will pause there on background. Ms. Harris did provide a PowerPoint presentation to address the point in time survey, and so we'll go through that briefly, and as just as, again, background and context to your conversation, and then we'll go through the issues.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And thank you, Ms. McGuire, for teeing us up. Look forward to this conversation. I think the last time, at least, I know all three of us and probably most of you were together in person was for the opening of the Neville Street facility, which was a wonderful, wonderful day. Still remember seeing the smiles on the staff at MCCH, the clients, all of you, and those who helped build the project. And so look forward to having this conversation about how that's coming along and how more broadly the point in time count accurately reflects the work that we've all been doing and what we need to be doing more in this FY23 budget. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, good morning. For the record, Amanda Harris, the Chief of Services to End and Prevent Homelessness. Before I go through the PowerPoint, I did just want to take a moment to thank everyone that has contributed to our success in moving the needle on ending homelessness. This really is a community-wide effort. We could not do it without our nonprofits, and they are not the only ones. We also have our faith-based community, businesses, our partners in DGS, and the police department. Like, everyone touches people that are experiencing homelessness in some way, and we really do need to work together to solve this problem. And obviously, thank you to the council for both funding our efforts to end homelessness, but also for your support in helping us implement. This is very complicated work in general, and during a pandemic, it is just incredibly challenging to get the work done. So thank you very much, and thank you to your staff. A personal thank you to your staff who have been incredibly supportive in helping me think through some things and move the work forward. So thank you. I will go to the slide deck. I know it's very long and we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not going to be going over the entire thing. I am happy to come back at any point and go over more details, or if during the discussion you want me to respond to a certain slide. So I will go quickly on this. Do I just click it? I can't see what that says. I'm sorry. That's what I did. Try this way. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so the point in time happens every year in January. This is a count that happens across the country where we count everyone that's experiencing homelessness, both in shelter and experiencing unsheltered homelessness. What I will say about the point in time, there's always a caveat, it is simply a snapshot. So this does not mean that we had 581 people on that night in January of 2022. but far more people experience homelessness throughout the year. So this is really, it's just a snapshot, and it also happens in the winter, where more people tend to come inside and go into shelter than they would in the warmer months. So there's a lot of caveats to this, but it does help us identify trends. And so as you can see, if you're looking at the 10-year review, so in the last 10 years, we have reduced homelessness 41%. And you can also see that we're making steady progress for the first 5 years, and then in the last 5 years, that's really accelerated. So we've had a 31% decrease just in the last 5 years. And the biggest decrease was when we were in the throes of the Inside Not Outside initiative to end chronic homelessness. So our number dropped significantly at that time. On the other side, you could just see homelessness by household type. So the blue is looking at household families, so the number of households, and then the yellow is adults. So we have made progress on the adult side, and we have overall made progress on the family side. If you remember, in 2021, during that count, we had the lowest number of families experiencing homelessness that we'd ever seen, incredibly low. Unfortunately, this year it did go back up, so that did increase. Now, the number of single adults went down, and as I've said before, I don't know if I've said it to you all, but ending homelessness is like a giant game of whack-a-mole. You start to do really well in one population, and then the other starts going up. So we're constantly trying to figure out how do we pay attention to all populations. So let me go to the next slide. So that's that. Again, just more details on the subpopulation. This is looking at unsheltered homelessness, unaccompanied youth, chronic homelessness. So we've decreased chronic homelessness by 68%. Unsheltered homelessness, almost cut that in half. And then a 34% decrease in unaccompanied youth. Maybe. We have a hard time identifying youth, counting them. We know that often young people are not coming into our shelter system, so the numbers that we have are only reflective of the people that actually are accessing homeless services, and we know that there's way more. We're very excited that the homeless drop-in has opened, and that will provide us a real opportunity to get a sense of what's the landscape, who's experiencing homelessness, how many youth, what are the kinds of housing interventions that they need. Whoops. That's fine. So, how do I go back? I'm sorry. All right, that's fine. I can just, the problem is I can't see what it says on that screen. It is very tiny. I cannot read that.
You're on next. You go down, you'll go to previous.
Just back. Just one more. That's fine. I can go forward. Okay. Sorry about that. I apologize. Maybe I need some binoculars. So as I said, we also need to look at the number of people annually served in our homeless continuum. So I did pull the numbers there in the last, and this is just a 5-year review. This is when our data was really reliable. So it's taken us a while to get high data quality in our HMIS system. So you can see there's been a 31% reduction in the total number of people experiencing homelessness throughout the year. So that's annual. A significant decrease in unsheltered homelessness, again, half. Also a 17% decrease in individuals experiencing homelessness. Now, the numbers between 2020 and 2021, there's not a great difference there. It's actually a slight decrease in the number of people served annually. But this is when we opened up the new shelter. We had all the rec centers. We increased our year-round beds. We doubled it. So you would expect that there would actually be more people experiencing homelessness, but there wasn't. And I think that speaks to our efforts to do diversion, that centralized intake and diversion to try and prevent people from entering the homeless continuum. Okay. So what would an end to homelessness in Montgomery County look like? That is still our goal, and we absolutely believe that it is achievable. So I think this analogy works well when you're thinking about homelessness. So if you have a bathtub, you have the total number of people currently experiencing homelessness. That's the water that's already in the bathtub. We have to work on obviously getting those folks out of the bathtub, but also we have to stop the inflow. So more and more people are entering our homeless continuum every day, and so how do we try and we got to turn off the faucet. And then the other thing that we need to do is that we have to release the drain. So we have to get those folks that are already homeless out as quickly as possible. If it's just it's small, if it's just dripping down the drain, we're never going to get there. So those are the things that we need to be thinking about. Skip all that. I will say we've done a pretty good job on reducing the inflow. I think that's largely due to the millions and millions of dollars that we had in eviction prevention, and also our implementation of the diversion. What we are seeing on the diversion is there's a lot of people, and we do not have adequate staff right now, which is why in the county executive's budget he's recommending an increase to diversion so that we can actually have diversion staff 24/7, and they would be able to do some follow-up with the individuals. So then the other piece is that outflow, and so you can see here that our length of time homeless is actually increasing. And that is a problem. So what we are seeing that although we have, let's skip all these, it's a lot in here, so what we're seeing is that even though we have all these resources, so we have our time limited subsidy, we have our exit bonus, which is the direct cash assistance, we've had a huge increase in rapid rehousing that we would like to continue, which is, again is why the $2 million is recommended in the Dhhs budget. But it is so hard to find units. The housing market is so incredibly tight right now. There's just very low vacancy. We have seen significant increases in rent, as much as 10 to 20% increase in rent. We are also seeing more instances of housing discrimination. So even though we have protections, we have the Housing Justice Act, we have source of income protection, landlords are getting creative about how finding loopholes and finding ways to get around that, or they're just simply not following the law. And although we try to keep track of the landlords that we know are doing that, in order for us to actually work through the Office of Human Rights to do anything about those claims, the individual tenants or the person impacted must file the claim. And then they have to see it all the way through. And they do not have the time or the bandwidth to do that. And so it's really unfortunate that these things are happening, but it's very hard with the current setup for us to actually hold them accountable. So I hope that we can have some discussions about how do we bolster up the Office of Human Rights or change some of their policies. If we as an agency or nonprofits could actually file a claim on behalf of our tenants, that would be very, very useful. And I think, so that's that part. And then the other piece, so it's not just about the folks that are homeless right now that we're trying to get into housing. We also are seeing all the folks that are in our permanent supportive housing programs and even some of our rapid rehousing. Because we do not have just cause eviction here in Maryland, the landlords are simply choosing to not renew the lease. They don't want to renew it because they want to increase the rent. And our folks can be very great tenants, but sometimes come with some additional challenges. So then we're having to rehouse people, and we're having to rehouse them at a higher rate, higher rents, and it also then they're competing with the folks that are currently homeless. So this is a real problem. I have some solutions, but not all of them. So I really look to you and your leadership to help us figure out how do we both increase the supply of housing, that's a long-term solution, and how do we improve access? And how do we ensure that our folks have access to these resources? So then the other thing is the inflow. So obviously the federal assistance is going to come to an end fairly soon, and we went from $130 million budget during COVID with all the federal resources. Our regular budget is $4 million. that's a huge drop, and I am very concerned about our ability to stay on top of it and prevent evictions and prevent homelessness, because the way people don't generally enter homelessness directly from an eviction. So they get evicted and then they bounce around, they find places to stay for a while, and it might be a year or so later that they enter the homeless continuum. And so we might not see a big hit right now as soon as the relief dollars are done, but a year from now, I certainly expect to see an increase. And then, of course, the last stressor on our system is just the demand for housing stabilization services. There's been a lot of disasters over the last year, fires, floods, building explosions, and you might not realize, but we play a really important role in those, not necessarily in the response, but in the recovery. So we're also, we're placing people in our hotels as they're temporarily displaced, and then we also are helping them relocate and find additional housing. We are also seeing an increase in the number of units being condemned and folks being displaced because of that and needing to have access to temporary shelter and, again, those relocation services. And then the last part of that is also there's a rise in newcomers. So there's a lot of people coming here, both refugees, people coming from other parts of the world, and without a lot of ability to have income, to find housing, to pay the rent. And we certainly are seeing with our Afghan refugees that they're very large families. And when I say large, we're talking 12 to 14 people in one family. We don't have housing that can accommodate families of that size. And if we do, they're not going to take a subsidy. So these are all the challenges that we're facing that is making the work harder. It's just harder. So I think I will stop there, even though there's way more things to say, but I will stop there.
There's always more to say, but I think you've done a good job of showing us where we've come from, and again, re-upping some of the data you provided, a 31% decrease over the last 5 years, and a 68% decrease in chronic homelessness. And on top of all the other numbers you shared, I mean, I think that is fantastic, and again, appreciate the way you spoke of the combined effort of all of us present, those who came before us as well. This is an ongoing work, and the metaphor that you use, the analogy regarding the bathtub, I think is pretty apt, and that will be seared in my brain. As we let go of some, others are trickling in. Two things I just want to hit on that you talked about before we get into the line items in the budget. The housing discrimination. You mentioned two different things. One, clearly, in the system that we have, when individuals do experience housing discrimination, it is the tenant, aka the plaintiff, that would need to continue the process. And you posited whether or not the county or another agency or organization could serve that role in trying to achieve justice, not only for that tenant, but for all the other tenants that are in that same situation. Are you familiar with any other models that might be out there for something like that, or is this really a legal 301 question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so yeah. I don't know, but I do believe there are other communities that are doing that, and they have a different way of being able to track that. I think it's LA that is doing some really interesting work on housing discrimination. It was just at the Housing First Partners Conference in Seattle, and there was not a session on it, but there was some brief discussion. I believe LA County is doing something.
I'm sure we'll all take a look after this conversation. And then the other item that you mentioned, the non-renewal of leases. Clearly, if the state allowed for the just cause evictions, which we all support here, that would eliminate that particular problem. And then the last item I have, and I know Councilmember Rice wants to ask a question as well, the condemnation of units causing or helping contribute to some of the increase in demand. Is the condemnation of units, that is outside fire, flood, hazards? So what would qualify as a condemnation?
That would be a question for our partners in DHCA.
Okay, got it.
But, often it's things like there's no egress if they're renting a room.
Sure. Mold, lack of windows, lack of egress, those kind of things. Got it. And we know that those types of units typically are basement parts of houses, the most affordable aspects of living, but come with their own precarious situations as well. Understood. Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Rice.
Thank you. And just very quickly, Mr. Lee, I just had a question because I know that just recently the state of Maryland had done a continuum of care study with youth homelessness, trying to get for 2 weeks, and I think here it was March 27th through April 9th. Do we have numbers from that yet, or any kind of indication? Okay, I was just, when you do, that would be great. And then also, I'm just curious as to what, because it's a longer period of time, what different mechanisms were they using? Because I agree with you, it's incredibly hard from couch surfing to everything else, and I want to bring in MCPS as well that may be able to help us in that realm. But I'm just curious as to what some of the new things that we're doing as a part of that continuum of care piece that was led by Maryland to try and address the issue, and if there are some other things that other jurisdictions may be doing that we might be able to implement.
Sure. So the Maryland Youth Reach, that's the count of youth experiencing homelessness in the state. It does operate pretty differently than a point in time. It does happen over 2 weeks, as you said. They conduct surveys with youth, and it's not, they can do it online. So there's lots of postings. You can scan the QR codes. Youth use technology, so don't like to talk to people, but happy to fill out a survey on their phone. So that's an important part of it. And we have been partnering with MCPS. We have a ending youth homelessness subcommittee of the ICH, and MCPS is certainly a partner there. And we have folks from public health working on HIV prevention. We definitely have stepped up our efforts around youth homelessness. So there are still, there's some limitations with the youth reach. I think this year is a little rushed. So we got notice because we weren't sure if they were going to do it because of the pandemic, and so we didn't get notice until maybe 2 months ahead. And to do it really well, we need to be planning 6 months in advance. So it's better than the point in time. We're getting closer, and I think each year we do it, we get a little bit better. And there are certainly other jurisdictions that we can learn from. Prince George's is doing some amazing work on youth homelessness. They are a recipient of the Youth Homeless Demonstration Project from HUD, and so they've gotten some additional resources. They have a pretty robust YAB, the Youth Action Board, so I certainly intend on learning from them. And then we also, the ICH voted at the last meeting for us to apply for the Youth Demonstration Project through HUD. So we applied last time, didn't quite get it, but we learned a lot, and so I think we're in a much better position now.
So then my question just for MCPS, when it comes to what it, and I don't think we have, no. Okay. So one of the things that I'd like to do when we get to MCPS is, and maybe we can follow up with them, is just in terms of their practice. I know that when we have letters that are sent to parents or sent to an address and then bounce back, whether or not they flag that, I mean, those are indicators as well of potential, right? And so it's just trying to use those unique ways in which we can try and get to some of that information via different kinds of modalities may help. Similar and akin to what we do with truancy, right? So utilizing that same sort of information, that same sort of data might help us along those lines. So anyway, it's just something I think we may want to follow up on in another discussion when we talk about trying to address some of the youth homelessness identification issues. Thank you.
That's a really good point. I mean, sometimes little things like that elude us, and you literally discard it without thinking much about it, but it is clearly an indication of something that is amiss. That's right. Council President.
Thanks. I'll be quick. Just in really getting immersed in this work, it's been so eye-opening, and you realize how complex these systems are and why it's challenging, especially for all of you, because there's so much out of our control. There's a lot we can do. There's a lot we are doing, and I would argue we're doing more than most other jurisdictions across the country. But when you have a lack of mental health beds across the state, when you don't have the infrastructure necessary and policies in place to address it and make it easier for families to be able to make referrals, it just complicates things even more. And now, obviously, we have fastest growing demographic in Montgomery County is our aging population, which are on fixed incomes and have really taken it on the chin in every way imaginable these last 3 years. So it can be overwhelming. And as you noted, the refugees that we want to be able to welcome and do so effectively and be able to provide appropriate wraparound services, but that does present some challenges and opportunities in many different ways. So I guess with all of that as context, and I know Chairman Rice has done a magnificent job representing us to the Maryland Association of Counties, and Council Vice President Glass has done a magnificent job along with his team and representing us to the Council of Government on homeless issues. But I guess, is there an opportunity for us, particularly with the new governor coming in, a new administration coming in, for us to create a time and place and maybe host something here in Montgomery County where we talk about, how we can help foster, work with. You just mentioned a great best practice in Prince George's County that we want to learn from, but acknowledging the various layers to this complex issue that, again, are out of our control. I think that would be a worthwhile endeavor, and see if we may want to work on, as we collect our breath at the end of this budget year, look at doing something early on with whomever the new gubernatorial administration will be. Just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yes, I think we absolutely should do that. I think there are so many things that happen at the state level that impact us at the local level. Obviously, the tenant rights, just cause eviction, all those kinds of things. The state has a surplus right now. It'd be great for the state to invest in building more affordable housing. And with that, the other piece that's important for the homeless continuum is having dedicated units to people that are exiting homelessness. So just building affordable housing alone is not enough if they can't actually access it because of poor credit, poor rental history, etc. They really need to be able to have access to that. And then I think there are also opportunities around behavioral health issues. So increasing state psychiatric beds for inpatient, kind of rethinking the role of housing in improving behavioral health, really buying into the idea that housing is healthcare, housing is treatment, instead of, I think the approach now has been, we do treatment, housing is something else, and we're never going to contribute to that. Is maybe a little misguided. How can you possibly work on your substance use or your mental health if you're struggling to figure out where you're going to sleep tonight or how you're going to get your next meal? So I think that would also be a good place to talk about how can we improve that collaboration. Also at the conference that I was at, there was a woman from the Georgia State Department of Behavioral Health. I don't know if that's exactly the title, but essentially that's what she's doing. And they actually they were under an Olmstead claim because they were not providing the lowest level of care to people and had way too many people in institutions. And they have actually developed a housing first voucher program for people in their system. And it has started out not so great, where they were just providing the housing, and then they realized, ooh, we actually need to provide services too. So, I think it would be great to follow up with Georgia as we talk to the state. Here's an example of how another state implemented a housing first program. So, you're welcome.
Great question, and later in this conversation we'll be talking about behavioral health, so put a pin on this now and we'll come back to it. Ms. McGuire, I turn it over to you to walk us through the packet.
Thank you very much. Just one other piece of background information that I wanted to share related to the Housing Initiative Fund, also known as the HIF. This fund itself is under the jurisdiction of the Planning, Housing, and Economic Development Committee, but a significant portion of the funding for this service area does actually come from the HIF. And so we wanted to just share that, again, context information for your discussion here. Again, as I said, a significant amount of funding supports the services to end and prevent homelessness from the HIF. It's going to be about it's recommended to be about 19.6 million total in FY23. The portion that we tend to focus on really relates to the increases to rental assistance that are funded through increases in the recordation tax. And that amount in FY23 is recommended to increase across the programs that are funded both across HOC, DHHS, and DHCA. And again, we just wanted to provide that background information as we move into our discussions. Again, primarily this will surface again when we hit the rental assistance program a little bit later on. So the first issue in your packet on page 3 relates to the shelter services. And we wanted to provide a couple of updates here because certainly this is the first full fiscal year in which the executive's recommendation includes funding to operate the emergency shelters year-round. And this is a significantly important shift in our policy and approach to really, again, ensure that people who are experiencing homelessness have year-round access to shelter services. And of course, as folks know, and as I know the committee has been deeply involved with, the Neville Street shelter opened in March, which again significantly increases the capacity for men for year-round beds. DHHS did provide information regarding the full year FY23 budgeted costs for the contracts operating the men's and women's shelters. Those are on the bottom of page 3 of your packet. And again, we just wanted to provide that context for you in terms of the new funding level that is being put forward for this new approach. Additionally, there is an approach related to centralized intake and the shelter hotline. The executive is requesting $700,000 to support a centralized intake process for single adults that really mirrors a model that's been used with great success for families and brings this approach to where all adults would be able to receive that intake support so that when individuals reach out for support for homelessness, there is a broader approach to engaging them around problem solving and a number of issues. The requested funding supports 6 positions that you see here on page 4 of your packet, as well as some technology. And there is also funding here to transition the homelessness information line to a 24/7 shelter hotline. We might want to pause here before we move on and just see if there are any questions, but also if there are any comments from the department on this section of services.
You're a mind reader. Yes, so I do have a question about the hotline, and just curious, how it would operate. Going to this system from what we currently have, which is more of a mailbox, a voice mailbox, really. To some degree on off hours, right? So moving to a live hotline 24/7. Can you just explain how it would operate, what the focus would be, and how it would actually assist individuals?
Sure. We are still working out the details, but I can tell you in broad strokes how it would work. So it would be staffed 24/7. The call takers would be trained on some very basic screening questions to determine if the individual calling seeking shelter needs immediate shelter or is going to need shelter tomorrow or the next day. So we want to assess for safety, like, do you have a place to go tonight? If the answer is no, then they would actually have access to the vacancies across our shelter system and have the person, they would notify the shelter, and then the person would be able to go and access shelter. For those that have someplace safe to stay for the night, then within 24 hours, the diversion worker would reach out to them and engage in that problem-solving conversation to see what we can do to try and avoid them entering the homeless continuum. And even those that go into shelter, then they would be connected with the diversion and rapid exit team at our shelters. So they're still going to do that problem-solving conversation. It's just makes it a little harder once they're already in emergency shelter. So we prefer to do it.
And then does that also require someone on the nonprofit, on the provider's side, to be available 24/7 for that intake?
Well, the shelter staff is always, they're open 24/7.
Fair, right.
So I think what they do, if someone comes in the middle of the night, they don't do the intake right then. They'll give them a bed and then they'll follow up the next day and complete the intake, the shelter intake.
Right. And you're jogging my memory from when I think all of us had done the point in time count, but in particular it was Councilmember Rice and I who were here in Rockville and saw a gentleman who was slumped on the staircase at the Rockville Metro, and at 3 o'clock in the morning we got a lift for that gentleman and sent him to MCCH. So, yeah, understood. Do y'all have any questions? No? Okay.
Thank you. So I wanted to highlight here, pardon me, a couple of requests that have come into the council from nonprofit partners in this space. Just wanted to highlight them here. One, in a letter to Councilmember Glass, who of course is our lead for homelessness in vulnerable communities, and to other council members as well. Interfaith Works has requested additional funding to support both their shelter services and their supportive housing contracts. This letter is reproduced in your packet as well. Council staff, in reading these materials from Interfaith Works, but also again just in sort of associated conversations with providers and with the department, I do think that it is, I think what we're really seeing is again the potential for some cost pressures that are continuing to mount for the nonprofit providers in this space. And again, I think this really highlights that adjustment time that we might be experiencing in our current transition for these services, both out of the pandemic and as we expand to the year-round services and given the current state of the economy, et cetera. Council staff's recommendation is that given that this, again, may be a broader and cross-cutting issue, to ask the department to work with the community providers across all of the providers in the emergency shelter system to, again, speak with all of them as one system and to really look at sort of what is that structural approach, what are the county resources or adjustments that might be needed, as well as what are the expectations, again, for sort of balancing this relationship in the system as we move forward. So that's council staff's recommendation for that particular request, and I'll pause there.
So taking the 100,000-foot level at those funding requests, we at the council having the conversation about how much to support provide additional support for our nonprofit service providers. My understanding is that these three main contracts already have the 6% built into it, correct? Okay. So in having spoken with a number of the providers about this contract and about some of the ongoing work, we just had this conversation at full council session on Tuesday about how to support our workforce that are coming under increasing pressures, not only the pressure to keep up with demand and provide more services for residents in need, but also the economic demand that we here in the county and the country are facing. And it's my understanding that some of those, or all of those pressures are equally applied to our nonprofit partners, if not more so, greater amplified, because they don't have the same ability to generate funds, increase resources as county partners do. And so how do we mitigate this growing gap that exists between the service providers, the frontline personnel, the individuals who are the direct contact with these individuals who need it the most, and the contracts that we are providing them?
I'm happy to have you answer this, Mr. Kroll, but I will speak briefly. I think it's a really hard question. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I do, in speaking with our shelter providers, namely Interfaith Works and Montgomery County Coalition for the Homeless, not all the increases are coming because of staff. I think we tried to account for that when we developed the budget and when we asked for the additional funds during the OBI. But there are also just costs that we didn't anticipate. So it's a larger building. There's more maintenance. Interfaith Works has 2 buildings, so you have to manage 2 buildings, which is harder than managing 1. Supplies have gone up. Inflation. Cost of toilet paper is incredibly expensive, and shelters need a lot of toilet paper. They do. So I think they're definitely going to need more money. I don't know exactly how much, and I think we need to continue those conversations, and we also need to have a few more months behind us and operating with what we have to really determine, is this the right staffing level? Are these the right supply? Is it the right amount for supplies? Are there other things that we can be doing?
And I appreciate the candor, right? This is hard, and I recognize that, and we all recognize it. But we also recognize that the attrition rates at some of our service providers is real. And the hardships that the frontline staff are facing are real. And, over the last 2 years during the pandemic, recognizing that county staff had much more flexibility in how they operated and teleworked, but our nonprofit providers didn't have that option. They needed to be in the shelters. They needed to be in the pantries. And that on top of the wage gap that is persisting are creating some tensions. And so we really need to figure this out. And again, I know it is tough. And whether it is done in this budget or we figure out another formula or another way to provide these contracts, I think that we need to be cautious as we move forward, because otherwise some of the staff will not be there to provide the services we need them to.
You've touched on the things that I would have commented on, and that is that we have staff that have throughout this pandemic had to be on the front lines in shelter and trying to keep themselves safe and their families safe at the same time providing that service. It's a job that isn't compensated at levels that you might think would be necessary. We've worked with them throughout this pandemic to try to adjust the compensation as time went on to make sure that they could get people and get them to stay in. But this is one of those jobs where if you have an opportunity to do something that doesn't put you at quite the same level of risk or isn't quite as demanding, then you might be inclined to take it at this point. So we are going to have to look at that and figure out how we grow the workforce and find a workforce that we can retain, we can adequately compensate so they will stay with us for a longer haul.
We do need to have that conversation. Council President Hunt.
Thanks. I appreciate this question, and I certainly understand and respect where our incredibly important nonprofit partners are coming from. I mean, we all see it, we all feel it. The costs are outpacing our ability to be able to address them in a myriad of different ways, and you add on top of that the attrition rates, and many people are either choosing to leave this profession or not deciding to choose it in the first place, which is a huge problem system-wide. And each of the respective nonprofit partners have their own unique sets of needs, and so I do think looking at a more holistic approach makes sense from a staff recommendation standpoint. And as I noted in a previous work session, I like the approach of us looking at the tranches of the additional 2% on top of the 6 and then the 2% on top of that, which would raise all boats. But within that context, we also discussed looking at what are some of those cost-sharing options or opportunities that we may be able to help with to eliminate a line item or two that these nonprofit partners have to pay for themselves. Things like rent. I know many of them already operate in county facilities, but some don't. And are there administrative infrastructure expenses? Could we find some savings by doing some collective ordering for a myriad of needs and services? Could there be help with some consolidation of volunteer service practices? I mean, there are things that are out there that I think could help raise all boats and help address some of the revenue side of things for our nonprofit partners. But at this point, I think that staff recommendation makes sense, and then we can, catch our breath after this budget process is over and see what we can do in terms of that 2 and 2, and if that's feasible.
If I could just say one other thing about the staffing. I think another strategy is to employ more people with lived experience. I think it is a hard job, and if your heart is not in it, you're fresh out of your MSW program, you're probably not going to stay working as a case manager in shelter for the next 10 years. You're just not going to do that. But I think people who have lived this and care deeply about helping their peers would tend to stay longer. And they need to be compensated at the same level as everyone else, but I think you'd have less issues with retention, and I also think it would lead to improved services. And so I strongly recommend figuring out a way for us to develop a network of people with lived experience, provide them some training, have some way of supporting them in getting jobs in our nonprofits.
Very good. Councilmember Rice.
Thank you. So, Ms. Harris, I first want to say thank you for acknowledging that there's certainly a potential for additional money that's needed. The only question I have is that can we afford to wait? Being that as we look at what's going on, and I agree with the Council President that I think that the 6% and the 2% and another potential 2% is going to certainly address some of those issues and get us closer. And so let me put a pin in that for a second, because I just want to understand. So, Ms. McGuire, it wasn't clear to me as a part of the packet as to the budget that is being proposed by the county executive includes the 6% increase for nonprofits across the board. And so what Interfaith Works and others are identifying as a shortfall is on top of that 6%.
That's
Is that correct?
That's
Okay. Okay.
And
Go ahead. No, please.
clarify. So yes, and we did want to clarify that 6% is included. Obviously, if additional funds, that would be additional. But I also wanted to just clarify, in case I also wasn't clear, staff's recommendation to come back was not for a full budget year. Likely, we would look at that as potentially within the course of this next year.
Which is what Ms. Harris
Yes.
is talking about, which I understand. For me, the only thing is, again, the time is now, right? And so how much can we do now to shore up while and maybe it may not be the full freight, right? But for the next couple of months, do we add something additional just to make sure that we're there? And again, I know this is just putting out there, and I understand where the Council President's coming from. I completely understand. It's just my concern is that to get us to that place, what do we need to shore us up just to make sure we're not putting them in a precarious position where they do have challenges? Because if we are talking about some of the issues with folks and retention, and then that means that then somebody has to work overtime, and then we are talking about additional expenses for some of the stuff, those things add up even over the course of a couple of months. And so then where is that money coming from, and at what expense? And so that's kind of my only concern. So we're on the same page. Let me be very clear. It's just, is there something maybe that we need to do, especially in this space, because it's a little different? And like I said, I agree with the Council President that across the board with nonprofits, and we just told McHale, we're like, look, do it as a part of the nonprofit part. So I get that, right, from a strategic perspective. But this is something that's a little bit different, where we're talking about our most vulnerable, right? Not only have language issues, but also have mental health issues, that also have housing stability issues, right? So you couple it all together. It's not just one. So
Sure.
So I was going to say that I'm not particularly a fan of incrementalism in this process. As I think it's just we need to understand what we're doing with folks and what the real needs are. The last 2 years, everything we have done has been first. A lot of what we've done has been first times for everything. And we're now entering a phase of this recovery process where we're facing new kinds of challenges here. This is a challenge that Interfaith Works has laid out for us that I think is a legitimate challenge. I don't know that we have thought through what all of that is and what that total package might need to look like. I think we do have some capacity at the start of any fiscal year of creating some flexibility in how they spend money and how they manage their resources that would give us time to understand this more fully. So I think we're looking for an opportunity to have that conversation with them.
So this is where, and Ms. Harris, so I'm going to tell you, so I trust Dr. Kroll and team in terms of understanding. And so if we can make sure that while we are working to get a more solidified view of what exactly the need is and addressing it, that we can provide flexibility to some of our partners who need that flexibility during this time frame, not to lose ground, right? And to really get us to where we need to be. I'm okay with that because I trust my partners that are at the dais. So, all right.
We can certainly do that. And the way the contracts work, they're cost reimbursable, so it's not they get a flat fee every month. So if they need to spend more, they can spend more, and we will certainly approve that. And that's what we were able to do during the pandemic, because it took a while to actually get the funds into the contract. So we've done that before, and we can certainly do it again.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, no, I mean, really important conversation, and we all can't underscore it enough. And the acknowledgement from the administration is critically important. You know, the partnership amongst all of us to make sure that our providers are provided for, right? That's what we're talking about. And I know we've highlighted interfaith works in particular, but also just want to elevate correspondence I've had, you know, with a number of organizations, but also Shepherd's Table, that over the last 2 years in particular, the programs that they've expanded to meet the need in our community, from doing events, you know, food deliveries at Parkland Middle School. But I think, interestingly, something else to highlight is an expansion of their services to include Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And it's not something that we would have thought of otherwise, but given the clients that they serve and the stress and the need, particularly over the last 2 years, they found it critically important to have that program. And so they also are requesting additional funds, but just wanted to share how they are expanding their services to meet the needs of today. So Ms. McGuire, do we have a decision point here?
So yes, so just a couple quick things. As you just mentioned, Mr. Glass, the Shepherd's Table has also requested funding. This one, I think, is in a slightly different category, and council staff's recommendation here is really for the department to just work with Shepherd's Table to clarify the scope of the request as it relates to their current services and as well as their current contract, and just kind of piece some of that out. And I think then if it's okay with the committee, we could sort of work to see whether that needed to come back on May 4th or whether it could fit into this conversation, if that's acceptable. Okay.
Sounds like there's agreement.
So we'll get more information on that and bring that back. And then I think what I'm hearing, if I can sum up a committee recommendation, is to support, of course, the base budget level for the year-round emergency shelter model, support the $700,000 increase for the intake model and hotline that we were speaking of, and then again to follow the approach that we just discussed, to continue that work and that conversation with the partners in the emergency shelter space and return with a plan, in addition, as was emphasized, to some flexibility at the beginning of the year to ensure that there's continuity of services.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you. Moving on then to the second issue on page 5 of your packet, healthcare for the homeless. The county executive has recommended an increase of $600,000 for additional psychiatric services for individuals experiencing homelessness in the emergency shelter system. Two quick things about this. One, we wanted to raise it here because, of course, it connects deeply to the to this service area. The Montgomery Cares Advisory Board has also requested an addition to this area for an additional $300,000 in addition to the executive's addition. And so I wanted to just highlight that we will also surface that request in the context of the public health budget, which will be next week. The executive's recommendation, really my understanding, and of course Ms. Harris can confirm or expand, which is that this really just reflects sort of that increased level of need and that we're going to see with our increased services of a year-round program. And that this really is just to kind of meet that expanded level that is present in the system.
Yeah, yes, that is correct. We actually have already been providing this level of services. We received one-time funding from the State Department of Housing and Community Development that we need. It was just 1 year funding, so we used that to cover the cost of the expanded somatic and behavioral health services. So this funding that's recommended by the county executive would just allow us to continue to do that.
I'll just note that since the Neville Street facility opened, I know Council President and I presume Council Member Rice also has received some correspondence from our hospitals and healthcare systems. Given the new location and the new service area, they've received some new calls, and so I think this is an important program so that we can also leave the emergency rooms in those hospitals for other residents who need them.
Thank you. And again, we will revisit the other request next week as well. The next issue in your packet on page 6 does relate to the rental assistance program. The executive has recommended a total of $8 million in the operating budget to support the DHHS rental assistance program, and there are a number of funding sources that support this amount. First, as we were discussing, approximately $4 million for this program would come from the HIF. In the other $4 million, $3 million is new county dollars, which would increase the overall funding level of the program, and $1 million is actually to replace the. I'm sorry, is that correct? Okay, I'm sorry, I misread the room there. And then there would be $1 million to replace ARPA funding that is on its to replace ARPA funding. So again, to just reiterate, there's $4 million of new county funding in here. $3 million does increase the level, and $1 million maintains ARPA funding. In addition, as the council has had a recent conversation regarding other ARPA allocations, there would be an additional approximately 3.4, again, we're still finalizing some of the details, but over $3 million of ARPA funding that the council has identified to allocate this forward. So again, that would help continue this bridge that we're talking about, and then Ms. Harris elaborated on earlier. As we are seeing these other funds decrease, these are some significant funds from the local end to identify a way to bridge that through. However, certainly it is also unavoidably true, as Ms. Harris said, the level is lower overall than it has been with this significant increase in the federal level. But again, just to the other side of that, it's certainly an increase from the county perspective in terms of increased resources that the county is able to put forward. So it's attempting to build that bridge, again, through county dollars and through continued identification of ARPA to this important priority.
I'll just say that I remember being on this committee and even being with the Joint Committee with Fed, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and talking about the need to update and modernize this program. And boy, have we updated this program, right? We might have been forced to do so because of the pandemic, to make sure that our residents were safely housed during that emergency health crisis. But we used that time and redirected funding, and clearly whatever expansion of this program is necessary, we need to do it. I do have one question before opening it up. I know that we will have a joint conversation with Fed, or the committee is having its own conversation, but because of the various funding streams from federal, our own funding, and state, can you talk about how all of those are being used and what the, I guess, longevity or continuity of the program would be when those funds dry up?
Sure. Do you have an hour?
Yeah.
That's very.
The president says no.
Very complicated situation. I do just want to clarify, though. So this money is for, unfortunate names, right? This is for the County Rental Assistance Program, which is our permanent shallow subsidy program. So this is not for rent relief or eviction prevention. So this is the ongoing subsidy. I know it's very confusing. I wish it had a different name. This is what I inherited. But I do think that this will be particularly useful for sustaining people. So what we're finding is that even folks that are receiving the time-limited financial assistance through the 6-month subsidy that we're offering, our rapid rehousing, is still not quite enough when the program ends to sustain in their current housing situation. So this can help fill that gap. As far as what we're doing to kind of taper off the rent relief, it's a work in progress. I think our primary goal right now is to open up the application portal for the next round. So that's where all our efforts are being focused right now, and then really thinking about what is it going to look like. It's very hard to imagine, I will just say, to go from $130 million to $4 million.
Can you share with us when that portal is expected to be open?
As soon as it is open, I will let you know. Very, very soon.
Okay.
Very soon, yes.
Probably. No. Okay.
And certainly, Mr. Glass, we can also return to continue an update on, as you're discussing in the Joint Committee after budget, to have more in-depth conversation.
When we have
Maybe the hour.
Yeah,
we can have
right.
a full hour. Maybe even more.
An hour and a half.
After
Okay.
budget,
Oh,
we have
she's
a lot
upped it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The final major issue in your packet relates to rapid rehousing, and again, here we're seeing a recommendation in the executive's budget for a significant increase of county dollars into this program, both to replace FY22 ARPA funding and to provide additional county funding to expand the program's capacity. The total to there would be $2.5 million in the executive's recommendation. Pardon me. And again, you see an outline of the program from all the funding sources is outlined briefly on page 7 of the packet. We could also bring that back during our special hour after budget. The council staff's recommendation is, of course, to support this increase. So on page 8 of your packet, we just highlighted a small number of consent items. Wanted to highlight them here for the committee's attention in case you had any specific questions about them. There's additional information about it in your packet as well. There is an update also on medical respite services, which I know was a really important initiative recently. This does continue and move forward that program. And again, there's just information here in case the committee has questions. Council staff supports everything on page 8 in consent.
Very good. Well, this portion of this conversation has been very helpful. We started off with a high-level success that the county has been making, and the investments that we've just discussed for the last hour, 45 minutes, will continue those efforts. And clearly, we need our nonprofit partners to be strong internally in order to help us, and the commitment that you all have shared with all of us and will allow us to figure out an equitable way to provide these services, because I don't think we can wait anymore, to my colleagues' points, and whether it's in this budget or when we come back to it maybe next week with some more information on some of these programs, or have to take any other additional action to make sure that our caregivers and care providers are cared for themselves. That's ultimately, again, what we're trying to figure out here. So hard conversations to be continued, but a lot of success by all of you and all of our partners, so thank you very much. And with that, I will turn it back over to Council President.
Thank you so much. We will now move on to the next item on the agenda, which will be focusing on, I believe, behavioral health. Thank you so much, Ms. Yao. And again, everyone, just a quick time check. We have a hard stop at 11:30, but I know Dr. Santiago wanted to make some brief opening comments, so if you'd like to do so now, Dr. Santiago, please go ahead. You have to hit the button on your microphone there.
Yes, thank you, Council President Albornoz, for the opportunity to comment. I just wanted to give a little brief overview of some of the opportunities as well as some of the challenges that we're facing. I'll try to keep my comments brief. First of all, this year we have spent a tremendous amount of effort on the crisis now response development, and you're probably very, very aware of that. The opportunities that we've seen in the last year has been the coordination of the crisis call centers to our goal eventually is to get to a regional integrated crisis call center. And just yesterday we had a work group meeting where we were envisioning what would that look like. But in the interim, what we do is coordinate as strongly as we can with 911, the new 988, which is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and also the Crisis Center hotline, and even 311. We touched on 211 as well, but those are the key ones here in Montgomery County. So there's a lot of energy towards that goal, kind of a regional care traffic control process. The other one that you're very aware of is the civilian response of the mobile crisis outreach teams, which will happen very shortly. We've been having very careful conversations with staff, especially Magio. Some people would look at it as a delay, and I see it in a very different way. as supporting our staff so that we can make the transition in a very sure-footed way. And that's the way that I feel. Our relationship right now with Machio and the staff can't be better right now. And we're grateful for our partners, the police department, that have assisted us as well in safety protocols. We've created some training opportunities, and we're in a good spot to do that. Hopefully in the next couple of months, we will do a 30-day notice, and then we'll start responding without the lease. The next one in the Crisis Now model is the stabilization function. And you're very aware that we have the Restoration Center. Now it's almost fully funded, right? We received from our delegation in Annapolis, and that was a huge success, and we're grateful for that. That puts a lot of pressure on moving quickly, so we're still applying for a bond to receive additional funding because, we've talked to Mary Beck at OMB and to make sure that we have all the resources that we need for the rest of it. We just submitted a bond application for fiscal year 24, and now we're going to work on an RFP for the operator of the Restoration Center. Thanks to Dr. Kroll, this has been your vision since time immemorial.
Since 12.
Yeah, exactly. And we're just grateful that it's happening. At the same time, we applied and got a SAMHSA grant so we can start piloting what the Restoration Center might look like, and we're having a 4-recliner stabilization room that we hope we can put together in the next year, and at the Crisis Center. So it's a small room with 4 recliners, and we're in the midst of hiring nurses. It'll be 24/7. So I'm excited about that. That creates an additional feature for the Crisis Center, and the services continue to expand. Something I wanted to mention during the homeless conversation is that we're partnering with Amanda so that the call takers in the diversion program are right there at the Crisis Center. So we've been talking, and that's going to be a relief for our staff as well, because they've been fielding many calls as well. So being integrated in this way is a good thing there at the Crisis Center. So you can tell from my words, I'm pretty excited about this. Now, what are the challenges? The challenges are recruitment, as you know, technology, antiquated phone systems, scaling. What do we do after we hire these people, the therapists and also peer support specialists that should start very soon to join the mobile crisis outreach team? That's helping with recruitment because it's easier to get someone with lived experience than a licensed master's degree therapist. So we're coming up with some solutions on it, and then the next challenge is going to be sustainability. What's going to happen in 5 years from now to sustain all this effort? And we're looking very much to partner with the council, with the executive, as we envision the future. But if you think about it in the broader scheme of things, it will also be a relief from the police department, right? Because they respond to many of the behavioral health crises, and this will be an opportunity to have more of a civilian response. So
thank you, Dr. Santiago. That context is so important, and there's obviously been a lot of attention and focus on this issue, which I think is obviously because of the weight of all of it and what we're seeing out in the community. But this does present an opportunity because there is an understanding of its importance and how it relates to and connects to everything that we do. So, Ms. Yao, if you could go ahead and walk us through the packet.
Will do. For fiscal year 23, the executive is recommending $50,828,662 for behavioral health and crisis services. It's an increase of $4.3 million or 9.2% from the fiscal year 22 level. There's a proposed increase of 2 FTEs for the service area. The tables on page 2 show the changes by program in terms of funding and FTEs. The table on the bottom of page 2 going on to page 3 provides a description of the various programs in behavioral health and crisis services. The first item for the committee's consideration is the multi-program adjustments. As far as the executive's proposed budget, the only changes for all the programs except for the 24-hour crisis center are in multi-program adjustments. So they include compensation changes, staff turnover, and other kinds of expenditures that affect multiple programs. So those are listed on the table on pages 3 to page 4 of your packet. And council staff recommends approval of those items.
Without objection.
Okay. The first expenditure issue is related to actually the Crisis Now model, but it's expanding the Every Mind hotline. There's 2 items related to that, $795,000, which would it's basically a continuation of funding that the council had made already through special appropriation and in the budget for expanded or enhanced services at the hotline that we put in place during the pandemic. Every Mind reports that the hotline is projected to exceed overall call and text numbers from fiscal year 21 in fiscal year 22. So, and meet actually the chat numbers in fiscal year 22 as well. There's another adjustment for $1 million, and that's to support the transition to the 988 National Suicide Prevention line. Every Mind reports it'll be used to strengthen staffing capacity, operations, technology, infrastructure. They'll be bringing on an external consultant to help them in developing, options for staffing structure and operational infrastructure, as well as data collection and evaluation and how they report and, show their impact. They're also planning on hiring additional staffing to expand text chat hours so that it's 24/7, as well as additional capacity for management and supervision and workforce recruitment and onboarding. So at this point, it's not known the extent to which the calls will increase. I guess the National Suicide Prevention Line anticipates a 3-fold increase. Nor is it known the amount of funding that the program is going to be able to get from other sources, including the state, as well as, the external consultant will have some recommendations as well as far as structure and staffing. So the executive has recommended a significant increase to the hotline budget. It brings with the $795,000 total resources to approximately $3 million. It's about $500,000 short from the estimated budget that Every Mind thought it would need to transition to 988. But council staff recommends approval of the executive's proposed funding, and the committee should monitor the use of the program during the transition to 988 to determine whether the level of funding for the program is adequate.
I agree with the staff recommendation. Let's go ahead and get something on the calendar for an appropriate time so that we signal to our colleagues in Every Mind, we hear you, we agree, we want to make sure we get this right, and we will be tracking this closely. Yeah, Councilmember Rice.
Just very quickly, and I think that again, when it comes to Montgomery County Public Schools, the most recent survey that was sent out, getting a sort of kind of idea of where our students are in terms of some of their mental health needs, other sorts of behaviors with YRBS. All of that will be helpful to be able to glean as well. So I'd like to have our Montgomery County Public School partners here as well so that they can weigh in terms of what they're seeing based on their survey data as well to help inform us also.
Yeah, let's make that a session.
Will do. The next item is a position to provide mental health support to the Rockville Police for an amount of $116,542. The position will provide mental health, it will support the crisis intervention team approach in the city of Rockville with the goal of diverting individuals with mental illness out of the criminal justice system and into treatment. The funding for the position is cost neutral, as the city of Rockville will be covering the costs. So council staff recommends approval.
Excellent.
The council staff, those are the expenditure issues for the committee. Council staff just briefed a couple items that the committee might be interested in hearing a little bit more about either now or after budget. There's an update on the mobile crisis and outreach teams. And it's the issue of recruitment is something I think that's, happening all throughout the department as well as county government. Every budget that I've seen, there's been concerns and issues related to, the ability to recruit appropriate staff. But I think this program is there's been a lot of attention to it, and I think that that it's no different. But there's been a lot of effort. The program was added 20 positions in the last 2 years. 6 therapists in fiscal year 21, 4 peer support specialists, and 2 therapists in fiscal year 22, and 8 more positions through a SAMHSA grant. There are 3 teams already that are available on day and evening shifts. When everything's filled, they anticipate 5 to 6 teams on day and evening shifts. But right now there are 14 open positions. They anticipate that 4 peer support specialists will be coming online soon. But council staff, again, recommends that the committee monitor the startup of these teams as we go forward.
I agree. And Dr. Santiago, you touched on this in your opening comments. The issue of recruitment is a huge one. It cuts across. On a related but unrelated, I had the opportunity to speak to the most recent graduating class of nurses from Montgomery College. And there were 69 people on the call. It was extraordinary, and I think that we have to really uplift and validate this work more than ever. So I would love to, as a follow-up, set a session up where we talk to our universities and college partners to see how more we can provide support, uplift, and acknowledge how important this work is, particularly right now, in addition to salary and compensation and all of the other steps that we need to take moving forward, which are fairly straightforward and important. We just have to make sure we're raising all boats.
And the last issue is, council staff requested some information on Waitlist for various behavioral health programs in the county. 2 kind of caught my attention in terms of being pretty significant, and that's for the Laurie Center as well as the Child and Adolescent Clinic. At least some of the documentation suggested the wait list was on the level of months rather than weeks, and so the committee may be interested in getting some more information from the HHS about these needs.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to visit the Laurie Center several times. I know it's such a lifeline for so many families, and so I'm not surprised there's more of a supply and demand issue, but I would love to follow up with at a later date and see what more we can do in that space too.
Okay.
Great. Is that it, Ms.?
That's it.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much. We appreciate your dedication and hard work.
Okay. So we're moving on to Children, Youth, and Family Services. For fiscal year 23, the executive is recommending $110,235,275 for the service area. It's an increase of about $15.5 million or 16.4% from the fiscal year 23 level. There's a proposed increase of 23 FTEs. The tables on page 2 of your packet show the recommended changes from fiscal year 20 to 23 for budget as well as FTEs, and the tables at the bottom of page 2 going on to page 3 describes the program areas as well as the recommended funding amounts. Most of the programs in this service area were reviewed, are being reviewed by the Joint Committee. Some have been reviewed, and the rest will be reviewed on May 9th. But there's a few programs that the HHS Committee will review on its own. The table on page 3 at the bottom shows multi-program adjustments. Again, these are compensation changes and any other changes that affect multiple programs, and council staff recommends approval of these budget items.
Without objection?
Okay. There's a number of expenditure items that are related to child welfare services in the fiscal year 23 budget. The table on page 4 describes them. There's $107,243 for a program manager 1 that's going to be doing data analytics and quality assurance. And this will provide oversight and management of child welfare services audit-related compliance measures, and just ensure that CPS mandates are timely and supported. The second one is translation services that are legally mandated for a cost of $73,125. The third is a principal administrative aid for the assessment manager's office. They'll be providing support for full background screenings for community-based agencies or school system staff to reduce the risk of maltreatment or abuse happening before the process is completed. And that's $70,440. And finally, there is a recommendation for a legal secretary in the county attorney's office for an amount of $60,360. The position will help keep up with increased workload through child welfare services and adult protective services. There's a lot going on here. Council staff certainly recommends approval of these budget items. These are really needed work for child welfare services and the functions that they provide. Also note that in the performance measures, it shows significant increases in fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23 target for children in the number of newly accepted cases, and the committee may be interested in hearing about these trends and how they're affecting the work of the department.
Yeah, let me take 2 steps backward. I am going to ask about that because I had the opportunity to visit with some of the staff who I know are performing heroically but are overwhelmed and exhausted. The caseloads have been extraordinary, and we're seeing deep concerns all throughout the entire system, and the complexity of the cases and the severity of them are just make your stomach turn. But on a lighter note, Ms. Treadvance, you've been doing a great job. I just want to welcome you here. This is your first formal committee session on your own. We've had joint committee sessions, but you've impressed a lot of people very quickly, and you've had to fill some pretty big shoes. But I just want to acknowledge and thank you for your leadership and your openness and your authenticity. It's being noticed, and it is critically important at this time. And you also, I have some friends that work on your team. All of us do, and they've all acknowledged from the staff level being very impressed as well. So just want to thank you for choosing Montgomery County, and we look forward to working with you. But with regards to child welfare, if we could talk about, I know we've struggled with vacancies here, we've struggled with turnover. What is the plan? How are we going to do our best to holistically support those staff that we know are drowning right now, and the caseloads are extraordinary?
So, for the record, this is my record, Zero Treadvance, Chief of Children, Youth, and Family Services. Thank you so much for your time today. I think this is a very critical issue. We know that this system heavily relies on clinical social workers. The team, under the leadership of Lisa Merking and our Director of Social Services, Oscar Menta, have really tried to step in and think outside of the box. One of the things that they're doing is that they're in conversations with Athena, the brokerage firm, to try to pilot the use of non-clinical BA level social workers to handle some of the administrative and operational pieces to lessen the load on the clinical social work staff. So that's one of the things that we're in the process of piloting. It's set to launch sometime in May. We're hoping that it works. We're hoping that that's most definitely going to even out and balance out the workload so that we could have our clinical professionals really dedicate their time to the clinical services that the community needs. And we'll be happy to report back once the launch is gone, to report back on successes and if it's worked and if it's something that could be considered to scaling it up a lot higher. We're also in conversations. Lisa Merkin, the head of the Child Welfare Services Unit, is in conversations with other jurisdictions to try to talk about this issue and really sit at the table and hear what are the strategies that other jurisdictions are doing to see if some of those might be relevant to Montgomery County and for us to be able to consider for implementation. We're also being very active in recruiting for social workers, in conversations with universities to see if we could create pipelines. Staff has been attending job fairs, and we're really out there, boots to the ground to try to see if we can garner some interest for folks back in this field, to bring folks back to passion, to mission, because as it was referenced earlier in the session, we're losing folks who love this work. But it's just the pandemic has just added a huge load on that industry. So we're really, really actively working with all of the parties involved to see if we can garner a little bit more traction and create pipelines for employment for staff. So those are some of the strategies that we're in the process of trying to implement.
Dr. Cronin, I have a couple thoughts.
Just a quick observation that on the recruitment front, one of the things we've talked about this is across the system, across the department, especially for social workers and therapists in the county. So one of the things we've been looking at is increasing the starting salaries because we found we were behind the market rates for starting salaries for staff. So we're working with OHR and our budget office to increase the starting salaries at essentially it's revenue neutral for the most part at this point. I would describe it that way. And one of the things that has happened is that we've been able to recruit interns that we've trained and being able to bring them on board. So there's some movement on that front. The downside piece of this is that the universities are telling us that their enrollment has dropped for social workers. So we can expect for an extended period of time this to be a bit of a challenge for us. But the team has done an aggressive job in trying to recruit and bring folks on board and figure out some alternatives, as you've heard from Mr. Banks.
I appreciate that. Just a couple of thoughts, and again, I'm going to say this as long as I'm on this dais. I was in your guys' shoes for 12 years. I know sort of the rigid policies of Office of Human Resources can sometimes be challenging. The hiring practices can be challenging. But there's certain categories of position, and this is probably the best example of one, where the weight and the pressure that's being felt by these incredible and extraordinary people and the cases that they're seeing. I'm familiar with some of them, and it's hard to process, right? So the opportunities to provide some level of health and wellness and respite care for the staff to the degree to which that we can, but also let's talk to human resources and see how we may be able to identify, and it's not just this category of position, there are others as well, but that are feeling the profound weight of what we are seeing right now. And I think we have to acknowledge and own that and think, as you already are, think very much outside the box and what more we can do. And if there's a guide or regulation that prevents us from doing something, then we should be looking at that guide or regulation. And I also think in positions like this where, if we don't do this right, the caseloads continue to be as challenging as they are, it has life or death consequences for families in a way that's extraordinarily acute. And so I do think there's, and this crosses over into GO, government operations, but I do think that further investments in the Office of Human Resources to emphasize these positions that have, significant legal ramifications, significant health and wellness ramifications for these kids who and families who are in crisis, I think is a really big deal. And then the final thing I'll say is, and I've been under the leadership of Councilmember Rice, the synergy and partnership between MCPS and HHS is, it's been strong, and I've really enjoyed our joint committee sessions. But this is an area that we're going to have to revisit because I know many of the relationships that we had established at the staff level prior to the pandemic, with the amount of change that has gone on and the referral process isn't quite what it used to be, I think needs to be revisited as well. So after the school year is over, I think there's an opportunity for us to see what we might be able to do this summer to more cohesively, because for a year and a half, teachers weren't in the classroom to be able to refer cases. And so now that they are in the classroom, they're referring many more of them, and it's creating this backlog, and that is becoming a huge challenge from an operational standpoint. So it's a tough situation all the way around. So I do appreciate the effort and where we are going, but just know the council fully supports not just what you're doing, but any and all ideas on how to address these issues holistically. We're very open to.
I would say one more thing to that note, and I'll be quick because I know there's a hard stop, and it's 11:11. To the point that you said, I think it's important for us to be mindful and generate strategies to balance out the workload, but to also take care of the workforce.
Yes.
So we're most definitely paying attention that in-house in CYF and seeing it's not sufficient to tell people self-care. People know how to take care of themselves, but when the conditions in your environment don't allow for that to happen, it becomes more difficult. So we're exploring in the unit to see how we can implement some sort of clinical supervision, trauma-informed supervision practices for staff, right?
Good.
Because in addition to, who takes care of the clinicians who are doing all of that? And I think we also bear the burden to try to fix our processes, our practices, to how we show up in our supervision model in a trauma-informed way to create safe spaces for our staff to be able to just breathe. And also pipelines for them to give us recommendations on where we can make improvements, because it's very different when we're sitting here and when the people are on the ground. They experience it very differently. So creating pipelines for communication and really changing our supervision practices going forward. So we're spot on.
That's awesome. And I'll just say one last thing, and Councilmember Rice has a point you'd like to make too. I think authentic and support, just in the way of acknowledging and congratulating and thanking, the team, and providing them with the grace to have a longer runway, and if they need a break here or there, just letting them do that, I think it's tough with the caseloads, but it's so important. Councilmember Rice.
Just very, very quickly, when it comes to telemedicine and what we've seen in advances, I've heard that Florida, Atlanta, Georgia are now starting to do some of that initial identification via telehealth when it comes to their initial interactions and with children, and being able to identify some of the early warning signs. And I'm just curious as to whether or not we've seen that and whether or not we've tried to look at utilizing that model. Also, the shared resources that could be by having, neighboring jurisdictions utilize the same person, but utilize some of that intake sort of vehicle to do the initial groundwork, which again makes it easier for folks. So just curious as to whether we've looked at something like that, and if that's something that may be able to help. Obviously, it can't be for all of the things we do. Some of the interviews need to be in person and need to be with the child, but for some of it, that may be possible. So Dr. Grohl.
Before Mr. Advance responsible, I'll just say that at the start of the pandemic, when people went out on lockdown and the schools closed down, one of the things we did was we engaged with MCPS around how you begin to see and recognize potential signs of abuse when you're on screen with a child and you're doing work with a child. Our referrals dropped. There are first reporters in there. Schools are part of that process, but we did do some of that work. It still didn't result in the same levels of referrals that we saw before, because it is a harder thing to do. But there was some work done early on that, and I think, I don't know where we are in terms of the department doing that, picking that trend up, but it's something we can come back to when we talk with the schools. We'll do our joint session.
Yep, no, absolutely. I will have to go back to see where these practices have landed, and if they worked. Obviously, it takes a certain sophistication and a different type of training. So if we are going to commit to it and we see that it's been working, because I think it's worth being able to do both, because Lord knows where COVID is going to take us in the next few years, and most definitely putting the investment in to train staff to do that in a sophisticated way so that we hit the mark every time, even on a virtual platform.
Great.
Great. The last budget items are related to, in administration, children, youth, and families, related to the reductions due to grant funding. In some cases, they've been shifted to general fund dollars. So the first one is the Kresge grant. The reduction is $750,000, but there is $260,933 of general fund money that will continue the East County Opportunity Zone services. The second one is a preschool development grant, a toolkit grant. That's a reduction of $25,000. And then there's a shift for the therapeutic recreation services that council had approved through our ARPA funding of $750,000. There was a split between positive youth development program as well as child and adolescent school and community-based services. So $255,000 went to PYD, and then the other portion went to CAESCBS or whatever, that program. And that actually was reviewed by the joint committee. So council staff does recommend approval of these adjustments.
Without objection.
Okay. And you've just talked about the staff recruitment and retention. The only thing I'm going to add is, Office of Eligibility and Support Services also. They've they've had a lot of challenges. They've kind of risen to do things differently, and I just wanted to raise that for you guys.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. So with that, we are adjourned. All right. Thanks, everybody.
14 minutes left.
I work in big data analytics, and it's healthcare analytics.